Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Let me start here very quickly. First of all, had a neat opportunity to now have two promo codes. Both promo codes, by the way. Again, I don't receive any kickbacks for this. This is solely a discounted rate on books and DVDs and Blu-rays, all of an educational purpose, without a doubt. Again, exploring real history, that goes without saying, from two publishers now. The first, of course, is armreg.co.uk, where you can receive 15% off with the promo code American Education FM. Great materials over there, no doubt about it. Great additions to your library. And now we have moneytreepublishing.com. I've referenced Moneytree Publishing before. I've linked their website in the description below of certainly the war videos and other episodes as well. But now there's a 10% off discount if you use the promo code AEFM, as in American Education FM, but just the four letters AEFM. So again, that's 10% off at moneytreepublishing.com. Again, there's books over there, documentaries, Blu-rays, DVDs, the whole thing. So feel free and check those out if you're interested. Of course, Christmas is kind of around the corner. And who knows, maybe you want to hard red pill some individuals on some certain things. And maybe you're just, tired of listening to their nonsense. that may be one of the things that you want to red pill them with. So there you go. I think at the very least you'd get shipping off, which is kind of cool, if not a little bit more. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, I'll link those in the description below if you're interested. Okay. For the vast majority of this episode, and I don't know how long this particular one is going to be, but what I want to do is I want to spend just a couple of minutes on the so-called Trump assassination attempt here. I think there's far more to this than even what is being alluded by some in the alternative media, so to speak. And as you've heard me say, and as you know, that when something like this happens, just step back and just wait a little bit, and then take a look around as to what generally everybody is saying, both in the mainstream and then, of course, in the alternative media, and then ask yourself if something else isn't going on also. Because we know, of course, that the alternative media is far closer to the real answer than anything the mainstream media will tell you. But what if it goes even deeper than that, and what if it's actually far more beneficial from a good guy's standpoint, that actually benefits Donald Trump in a way that maybe some aren't considering? So I'm not bringing this up because I'm trying to be sensational in any particular way. That's certainly not the case. I'm just connecting different dots here, and some dots, again, date back to even Q posts, which is, I know, hard to believe for some, but you heard me in Monday's episode bring up again, which I, of course, recorded and aired on Sunday evening, that there was going to be something that was going to happen. And that something was going to occur and draw attention, basically, to the media and everybody to a particular series of events that would take place, certainly during the first half of this week. I don't think that's an accident. When Q posts are directly naming dates of particular things, even though they're not naming the thing, but they're saying, hey, look, a series of events is going to happen on these particular days. It's going to be a sort of a media frenzy. You're going to want to pay attention to this. And then all of a sudden that happens on Sunday afternoon, which of course would kick off the media firestorm immediately on Sunday and then well into Monday. And I'm recording this on Tuesday. So again, here we are, and people are still bringing it up. And again, there's too many independent thinkers now, and there's too many individuals in the alternative media and in, again, this, citizen journalism, basically, and there are just too many people with eyes on and too many people with research skills and the ability to dive into these subjects and look at things multidimensionally. Again, you're not going to get this from a three-letter agency. You're not going to get this kind of stuff from the government, and certainly not the media. They're all tied in with one another, and they're all interested in, again, basically the same motive, which is not to tell the American public the entire story. And again, we have to assume, and there's ample evidence to prove that this is the case, that there are clandestine operations taking place by the good guys as well. and that they can't divulge, of course, what they're doing because they're fighting basically a multidimensional war also. So there's a lot going on here, but I want to dive into that again rather briefly, if I can. And then I want to actually spend a great deal of this episode talking a little bit about Ohio crime and crime that's gone on throughout the course of Ohio, certainly in the last, I would say, 8 years, bringing in Mike DeWine and his wife and a number of other things. And then I have some audio to play from Springfield also, specifically regarding their school closure the other day due to quote-unquote bomb threats, which, as you know, and as I've written about and said here on the show, a lot of these bomb threats, of course, or pseudo-threats, come in actually from three-letter agencies using virtual protection networks, and then, of course, they never catch these individuals, and they openly admit that, well, the phone call came in from overseas, and we can't catch the person. And then they basically double down and say, well, there's no way for us to find the individual, and unfortunately, this is just sort of a thing that happens and whatever else. This was never a thing that just happened. But this is now a thing that, again, is purposeful. It is designed to select very specific areas that are gaining media attention, whether it be good, bad, or otherwise, typically bad, and then they throw in something like a fake bomb threat or a fake school threat or a fake shooting threat to draw more attention to the school, to basically, again, manipulate the public, certainly the local public who live in those areas, in order to trick them into believing that the reason that the media is paying attention to them, that alone is what is driving all of these so-called threats to be called in or emailed into the school. That you need to stop talking about this particular school district or this particular area, because look at all the attention you're drawing to us, and random crazy people are now starting to call. It's a poor excuse, but it is an excuse that the very people and the very three-letter agencies who make these phone calls to these school districts and to these towns and cities, they're the ones manipulating all aspects of this. And unfortunately, the gullible public and the gullible school districts are caught in the middle. They have no idea they're getting tugged on from multiple different directions with a leash around their neck. So I want to get into that a little bit as well, because again, there's a lot of Mike DeWine ties to a lot of stuff, and trust me, as an Ohio citizen, I can fully tell you, I don't think there's a single person in Ohio who likes Mike DeWine, nor his wife, for a variety of reasons, regardless of your political leaning. So there is that also. And then, again, I have one quick jab-related story that I want to bring up as well. Okay, so here we go. First of all, the so-called Trump assassination, I'm just going to rip this right out of the gate here and let you know my thoughts on this. Me personally, I think this was a sting operation. I don't think that there's a single chance in hell that you would have a guy camped out, lying down, standing up, whatever it is, next to a chain link fence at a major intersection, because I've seen the map of the layout of where he allegedly was and what was going on and where Donald Trump was and so on and so on. There's no way you would have this guy there for 12 plus hours, staked out, knowing that Donald Trump was going to be playing golf on a Sunday or potentially playing golf. And then, of course, there's conflicting reports saying, well, the golf round was an impromptu decision on the president's part, and that he wasn't normally going to play, even though he typically does play on Sundays, but wasn't going to play this time, and then changed his mind and whatever. Again, I think this is a sting operation. This was an individual who had a cell phone, or a cell phone was found, or his cell phone was found in the general area. There's no way you can't use technology from the good guy's standpoint to pinpoint his cell phone, to pinpoint discussions he's having, people he's communicating with, phone numbers, emails, you name it. Any content that's on said phone. And then find the location of the individual and then do something about it. I would be far more likely to believe that this move, again, was some kind of a sting operation. I'm not saying that just to sound different. I'm saying it simply because, like I said earlier, in Q drops, it was basically told to us from years past that this particular week that things were going to happen that would suck up the entire news outlet and news story headlines, and it certainly has. There's also this, and by the way, I'll read that Q post here in just a minute because I think there's more than one. But this was from Enoch at at Enoch. I'm gonna get the rest of that wrong here, the rest of his handle. Anyway, he's over on X and Truth. And here's what he said. He said, quote, "Did Trump know that there would be an attempt to assassinate him at the 6th green?" It says on September 13th, 2024, Trump inexplicitly posts what we know commonly as a hashtag symbol by itself on Truth Social. At the time, many believed it also was the symbol for checkmate in the game of chess. Also in the game of chess, the moving of the king to G6 is usually fatal. He, of course, was on his way to, I believe, the 6th hole. It says, during the second assassination attempt, which is, of course, it's right here, it says on Trump, it says, and potential shooter was discovered just outside of the 6th green, G6, with Trump, king, in parentheses, moving toward it. Did Trump post the hashtag symbol as a checkmate to covertly acknowledge the coming attempt at his life and as a sign to know that it was coming? And I have to tell you, I just find it too odd. Because normally in the past, when Trump would make a particular tweet or a truth post, now that he typically posts on Truth Social, if something is posted and it doesn't make much sense, normally the media jumps all over it, just like the Kofifi thing. Remember that whole fiasco? The media not only jumped on that, but they ran with it so hard that they actually tried to paint Donald Trump as being retarded. They tried to paint him as basically saying, well, we need to invoke the 25th Amendment because he can't spell the word coffee. And then when asked about it, he would say, well, it means Kofifi. And then that was kind of the end of it. And then it just sort of became this ambiguous joke. When in fact, again, a lot of people online were diving into it being an acronym. And what does the acronym mean? Now, the actual definition of the acronym has slipped my mind. But I do remember it being a rather positive thing. It had to do with, again, standing up for yourself in the face of evil and something along those lines. And that's basically what the saying was based on my own memory. But either way, he puts out a truth post with just the hashtag symbol and nobody asks any questions. The media doesn't run with it. They're just like, what is this? And then they go, whatever, don't give him any attention. And then they don't. Well, why wouldn't they? Is it because, again, the good guys are sending the bad guys a message using his social media as one of the weapons? This is part of the warfare that cannot be ignored. I mean, this is a big deal. So here's the actual Q post itself that has been referenced lots of times here as of late. It's post 4686 from September 13th of 2020. It has the Punisher logo there with a red background, and it says equal justice under the law as written, transparency, and then it says disclosure in, the brackets there. It says and accountability, justice is the only way forward. It says future of our republic at stake, Watergate times 1,000. And then it says September 14th through 18th, 21st through 25th, track and follow events. And then it says, did Kevin set his alarm? Q. Now, I'm a little unclear and I forget as to who Kevin is and who they're referring to in that. But again, the simple date fagging in this is rather interesting, I think, and I don't think it's accidental. Again, we're talking about a multidimensional war that's taking place here. It's an information war. It's a coded war. This is all legit. This is not a game. This is a very real back and forth. So again, if they were interested in engaging in a sting operation and catching these bad guys communicating with one another, I think it worked. Now, a lot of people, of course, were saying, why was MSNBC on the scene filming Donald Trump golfing? And where did that footage come from? And again, was it the actual day that he was playing golf before he was allegedly going to be shot at, which, by the way, he wasn't even shot at. There were no shots taken in his direction, and that's apparently been confirmed. And approximately 4 shots were taken in the direction of this Routh guy, and yet the guy wasn't even hit with anything. So again, I'm not saying that maybe he didn't want to kill Donald Trump, but I have a feeling that they knew where this guy was, what this guy was doing. Not to mention, again, the very map of the location, the corner of that golf course where Routh was located is up against a sidewalk, which is up against a major road, which is at a major intersection. Again, if you've ever been to Florida, certainly West Palm Beach, I can tell you, as I've been there myself, there are security cameras everywhere. I mean, there are security cameras everywhere at almost every major intersection, certainly in the state of Florida, but basically everywhere. This is all used, of course, for the purpose of law enforcement honing in on individuals, and then, of course, if other individuals have access to that footage, they can pinpoint right where a person is in the blink of an eye. I just think that there's more going on to this. I don't believe for a minute that they would actually dangle Donald Trump out in front of people, knowing full well that endless people want him dead. And again, part of me does think, and this is the non-analytical part of my brain where I just say, Donald, you don't have to go golfing right now. You don't have to give speeches with bulletproof glass in front of you. You've already won the election. It's already wrapped up. He could give speeches in Mar-a-Lago for the remainder of the time. He could play it cool for the remainder of the time. Apparently he's going to do another town hall with Sean Hannity, allegedly. It's things like this that I don't think have to happen, because there are people out there who want him gone, and there are endless people who have said so on the record, and these are not good people. So again, I have no doubt that there is a sting operation taking place and that it will take these people down. Again, if you take a look at the other news headlines that are going on right now, you have a great deal of people, of course, focusing in on Hollywood and focusing in on Sean Combs and his arrest and a number of other things. And, people can say it's a coincidence, I suppose, all they'd like. They can say that the cue drops and the exact dates that these were mentioned, and that you need to be paying attention to the news and the media and what they're talking about throughout, the first certainly half of this week and certainly next week. People can say that's a coincidence all day long, but there's more going on here. You can't fight a one-dimensional war and beat this enemy. It does have to be a multi-dimensional war, and I don't think I'm the only one that understands that. I think everybody, by and large, seems to get that, and certainly the people running these operations understand that. So, that's basically my 2 cents on the whole thing, is when something like this happens, take a look at what the mainstream media says first, and then step back, don't get over emotional about it, and then take a look at what the so-called alternative media says about it, and all the, finger pointing and everything else that they do, and then understand there might be even something else that not even they are mentioning. Now, if someone would also say this, they would say, well, since this is a multidimensional war and there's multiple narratives that exist out there and purposes of those narratives, what's one of the major things that the good guys want the American citizens to understand? What's one of the things that they are trying to instill in the American people on a wavelength of understanding having to do with government? And it really has to do, of course, with the destruction of the 3-letter agencies. This is a big deal. This is being slow rolled out to the public, one event after another, one episode after another, in the interest of getting the American people to understand that we can and have and should in the future function without the presence of 3-letter agencies. We do not need the FBI. We do not need the CIA. We do not need the ATF. We do not need, pick the agency. Hell, we probably don't even need the United States Secret Service. I mean, you have dead asleep people, even like Glenn Beck, openly out there saying we have got to do a complete cleanse of all of these agencies. But the fact is, to take it a step further, because he doesn't think multidimensionally about much, and he's a tool like a lot of people are, but at the exact same time, we don't need a cleanse of these agencies. The agencies need to be destroyed. This, of course, dates back to JFK not wanting the military-industrial complex and not wanting three-letter agencies. And then, of course, they all killed him for it. And that was only part of it. Of course, wanting Israel to register as a foreign agent and a number of other things. But, again, you have to plant the seed of abolishing these three-letter agencies and getting the American people to not trust them. This Routh guy had so many connections to so many agencies, including the media themselves, that again, it goes back to begging the question, why was MSNBC filming at the golf course, allegedly the day of the so-called shooting? Again, I don't know if they were using file footage in one of their stories or not, or if it was the exact same day. But here you have allegedly 2 shootings taking place with the media completely surrounded. Everybody's airing it. Everybody knows. That means they're communicating with one another. There's no flippin' way that the good guys don't have the communications of these people to try to take down Donald Trump. They have them. And they've got them all dead to rights, I think. I think the good guys have all of these agencies, media agencies, the players, the producers, the CEOs, everybody. I think they've got them all. And then, of course, we're going to have to see full-blown justice. We're just going to have to see it. And you've heard me say that before, and I think you agree that this is something that we're visually going to have to see. We're going to have to see these people perp-walked, hung, tried, what have you. Again, if it is a military tribunal, typically those wouldn't be aired on TV, but who knows? We live in unprecedented times, so don't those call for unprecedented measures and unprecedented solutions of which are completely lawful, and yet it's a solution that we have not actually seen as a people. So there you go. There's my 22-minute take on the whole Donald Trump thing, but again, I find it odd that the good guys would dangle Donald Trump out there, knowing full well that there are people who want to hurt him. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that they would be that careless. I think that there's other things happening here that benefit the good guys. In fact, let me make mention of this because this is something, again, that not a lot of people are talking about, and I didn't listen to it, so my apologies for not listening to it, but rumor has it that apparently the Donald Trump X Spaces talk that he was apparently giving on Monday night had actually more to do with some cryptocurrency that he was allegedly pushing. At least that's what I heard about it. A lot of people, again, online weren't talking about anything that he brought up on his X Spaces as being consequential, as being monumental in any way. That it was basically just an opportunity to push some cryptocurrency. The pattern here, which I think is interesting, that is lost on some and forgetful among some others, is that when Donald Trump draws attention to himself in a particular way, again, using an event or what have you, and then he ends up talking about something completely different, people walk away saying, well, that was a bust, and why did that happen, and what's the point, and who cares, and why is he talking about cryptocurrency and some non-exchangeable token, or whatever it was that he was talking about. People have to think about it, I think, multidimensionally and understand maybe, again, that was some kind of a honey trap. Maybe it was some kind of a communication gathering sting operation. It's possible. I know I could sound like a crazy person, but the fact is that's highly possible. Let me mention this kind of in closing, and I think it ties into that exact example, is that back on November 15th of 2022, when he gave the speech at Mar-a-Lago, and I played, a short clip of it in the last episode, toward the beginning of the episode, and of course you can see it at the second half of the war video on Monday. But a lot of people went into that speech, again in November of 2022, thinking to themselves and openly spreading rumors online that this was the day that Donald Trump was going to basically show up on stage. He's invited everybody there, and he's going to tell everybody that he's the president of the United States, that Joe Biden lost the election, he's the real commander-in-chief, and now he's in charge, and Mar-a-Lago is the real White House, and this is the way that it is. When he gave that speech and gave the long speech, if people were listening, not only, of course, did he say that he's going to be running for president in 2024, which again at the time was 2 years away, approximately, and that was exhausting for people to hear, even though, again, they want him to run for president again. But what they really wanted, of course, was for him to say, I'm the commander-in-chief, I'm really in charge, the military is with me, and this is the way that it is. But he said far more in that speech, again, that got dismissed. He openly admitted that this entire thing is being controlled to a great extent. He openly admitted that, yeah, we're at war, and this is very dangerous, but there had to be a pause. That this pause was necessary, and that once this pause is over, everyone will agree with him, and everyone will understand the seriousness of why this had to be this way, and why this had to be done this way. Again, if you're setting a trap for someone, you don't spring the trap while the enemy is still on the outside of the trap. You try to get as many of them as you possibly can inside of the trap. And again, if you fast forward from November 15th of 2022 to right now, look at everything that's happened over the course of the last couple of years. It's a great deal of things. Again, unfortunately, people have lost their lives. Constitutional erosion has continued to take place. And it's not one of these things, ladies and gentlemen, where we just sit around and we watch everything just go straight to shit. That's not it. You have more citizens now pissed off than ever before. You have more citizens armed than ever before. These are all good things. And you have more citizens standing up for their rights against government and, I should say, against brainwashed people. The awake individuals are not timid anymore around brainwashed people. They have no problem looking at the brainwashed and just saying straight to their face, you're brainwashed. You have no idea what you're talking about. The things that you're passing off as being truth are in fact lies. Too bad, go pound sand. Let me give you a quick example. I mentioned this, I believe, on Friday's episode, where I was talking about Oxford, Michigan, that quick speech that I gave, talking about how not all school shootings are real, how Sandy Hook, Uvalde, Nashville were fake in my professional opinion, but how the Oxford, Michigan one was, of course, real. I also believe that I'm inclined to believe that the Georgia shooting recently is also real. And after that Oxford, Michigan speech, I, of course, put together a Substack outlining a number of different things and highlighting specific documentaries that I suggest people watch, again, about Sandy Hook, Uvalde, Nashville, etc., etc. With all of that transpiring, and that very short speech that I gave, and, of course, the support that I got from Jesse James and the Dangerous Info podcast, that individuals in that town are, in fact, waking up to the fact that a lot of school shootings are not real, that some of them are just flat out fake, in particular the ones that the media runs with about as hard as you could possibly imagine, and then, almost the dead giveaway every single time, is there is federal involvement from Washington, D.C. in said quote-unquote shooting. And certainly within that script. That's almost the dead giveaway that the shooting doesn't take place. But what's happening in Oxford, Michigan now, as I said earlier, is that there's a guy who's running apparently for school board who encouraged people to watch the documentary, We Have to Talk About Sandy Hook. And as a result of that, this guy has now been kicked off of a Facebook page or a Facebook, whatever it is, it's like a Facebook thread or a moderated Facebook group that apparently was endorsing this guy, but now all of a sudden has pulled their endorsement because he has openly said that people need to watch this particular documentary. Understand the weight of that. These people are outing themselves as not being thinking people, the moderators of said Facebook group. Clearly, the guy has balls of steel because he's clearly telling people without fear of repercussion or anything, he's saying, hello, you don't know what happened with this particular event, so you'd best pay attention. Again, this is part of shedding the skin. This is part of becoming awake, putting on the armor of God. That's what all of this means. It means that you stop caring what the brainwashed think and you tell the truth to them no matter what. And then, of course, the brain dead and the individuals that are still brainwashed, these individuals in typical and predictable fashion are going to flip out because they're not going to know how to react in those situations. They're not going to have a clue. They're just going to name call and make fun of. When, again, the easiest retort to make to those people is, okay, you've name called, you've done all of that, have you seen the documentary? And then, of course, they would say no. And then they would say, well, I don't need to. I believe it, and I don't know why you wouldn't. And you would stop them again and say, yeah, but have you seen it? Have you thought about what really happened there? Have you looked at any of the evidence? Have you examined anything? And the answer, of course, is no. They haven't. Because nobody walks away from those documentaries believing the mainstream media narrative on the entire situation and then actually reverting back to their old wavelength of thought when they were watching the mainstream narrative of those situations and saying, well, I still believe the mainstream media. You can't do that. It's impossible because clues and evidence are the same. And when you look at more clues and you look at more evidence and you apply the scientific method, you arrive at endless conclusions that are more logical than anything somebody's going to feed you on a silver platter, certainly coming from three-letter agency, media apparatus, and everything else. So again, when it comes to the Trump thing and people waking up, when something like this happens, I would just encourage people to think differently about it and understand that there's way more going on here. It's not that we have to know every single thing that's happening, but if you're still taking things at face value or even a second dimensional look, I would encourage people to understand there's probably a third, fourth, fifth, and even sixth or more dimension to what's actually taking place. And that's not me, again, carrying water for Donald Trump. That's not me carrying water for anybody. In fact, I would say I'm simply carrying water for individualized thought. And that I would encourage people to do that and not fall into these patterns of, again, just believing mainstream narratives all of the time. Again, there's ample evidence that the mainstream media knew that something might happen. The Time magazine cover of him in a golf cart sinking in a sand trap, and the media allegedly being there filming it, and this Roush guy having media contacts, and individuals in the media openly saying, I've communicated with this guy about the Ukrainian war and blah, 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 blah. I mean, now you're talking about foreign influence in an attempt to kill someone from foreign governments. It can't get any clearer. So again, there's just way more happening, and there's way more going on than what meets the eye, but it's usually the lesser discussed things that are closer to the actual dimension of what's actually transpiring here. Not to mention, again, Sean Combs being arrested as much as a so-called distraction as that might be to some. As we know, he's basically the Black Jeffrey Epstein. There were endless things taking place with him that are beyond unimaginable and beyond horrific. Again, just to refresh everybody's memory, I can't remember coming across a video on the old interweb of Justin Bieber, what was it? Justin Bieber on his hands and knees sucking off Odell Beckham Jr. with Sean Combs standing next to them in a nightclub with somebody else filming. And then Sean Combs tells the guy to stop filming, and then Justin Bieber gets off his knees, and Odell Beckham looks shocked, and there you have it. Again, why would Justin Bieber as a kid be on his knees facing the waist of Odell Beckham Jr., a former NFL football player, in a nightclub standing next to Sean Combs while being filmed? What are they doing? Are they really dancing, or are they dancing on each other's genitals? This is the kind of horrific shit that people can't comprehend because they don't want to even believe that they live in a world like that. Again, it was just like the tweet the truth post that Donald Trump put out saying, "I hate Taylor Swift." Okay, great. He's 100% right. But look at it multidimensionally. Donald Trump would openly put out a tweet that says, "I hate Taylor Swift," period. And that's the only post. Tweet, truth post, what have you. Truth post. Either way, a one-dimensional thinker would say, "Why is he doing that? That's a waste of time. There's more important issues," and blah, blah, blah. Taylor Swift is a Satanist. She's a practicing Satanist. And as a result of that, and the social engineering connections that she has clearly with Satanists in Hollywood and three-letter agencies and a number of other things, because again, let's face it, it's not that she has talent. It's that she's controllable. And you only get to that stage of the so-called Hollywood ladder if you play their satanic game and you're owned by three-letter agencies. So he puts out a truth post saying he hates Taylor Swift. The real answer is he's trying to get people to understand why he hates them, why he hates Taylor Swift. And it's because she's a Satanist. Again, go watch one of her concerts. Go look at some of her music videos. It's blatantly obvious. This is a big cultural shift that is happening in our nation that cannot be ignored, and Donald Trump's trying to wake people up to this. But for someone, again, one-dimensionally, to just sort of ignore that, they're not paying attention. They're not paying attention to why he would do it and what benefit comes from it. And the fact is, a lot comes from it. You have parents waking up to this who once sent their kids probably alongside the adults themselves to a Taylor Swift concert, and that's not happening so much anymore, and I bet that declines in the future. And the more that people talk about it online and spread that around online, her controllers are going to panic, and her empire, so to speak, is going to start to crumble. She's got the money, so, whatever. But my question is even deeper than that. Does this woman have ties to child trafficking? Does she have ties to other crimes? What crimes has she personally witnessed? Has she been a part of particular crimes? Has she witnessed particular things that got her to be where she is, to the point where potentially she's completely blackmailed? That would have to be some horrific shit. But it's possible. So again, these communications are not accidental. That took a little bit longer than I was hoping, but I think I think you understand. There's way more going on here. So I'm going to end it there. Let me move on to this now. This has to do with a little bit of Ohio history, specifically regarding, again, Mike DeWine and his wife and a few other things. Now, some of this, again, is just going to sort of be my opinion along with some anecdotes and just a couple of historic events here. But you may recall a while back, and let me get you the exact year here. This would have been 2016 in Ohio. What is referred to as the Pike County shootings. Now, when this happened, and this particular story hit the media, certainly locally, because it's only a few counties over from where I live. It's actually 4 counties over in south central Ohio. When this happened, it was immediately hinky. Again, to a thinking person. they would instantly say, wait a minute, this isn't about drugs. This has to be about something else. So allow me to read, again, the Wikipedia version of these events, and then I'll throw in just some anecdotes and some other connections and other things that potentially got tied into this as well. It says the following here. It says, quote, "The Pike County shootings, also known as the Pike County Massacre, occurred on the night of April 21st and 22nd through 22nd of 2016 when 8 people, all belonging to the Roden family, were shot and killed in 4 homes in Pike County, Ohio, near the village of Peebles, 50 miles, 80 kilometers from Columbus, and 60 miles from Cincinnati. Their bodies were found later on April 22nd. 7 of the victims, 6 adults and a 16-year-old boy, were discovered to have been shot execution style in 3 adjacent houses, while the 8th victim, an adult, was found shot to death in his camper in nearby Piketon. It says 3 young children, including 2 infants, were unharmed. At least 2 shooters were initially believed to be responsible. And then a manhunt took place for these so-called killers. They allegedly found them in some camper in Alaska, so goes the story. And then Mike DeWine himself came on television and tried to make himself sound like Barack Obama when the alleged Osama bin Laden guy, although I don't believe that for a minute either, that he was killed, and he comes out and he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, we got him." And it's like, oh, okay, because Mike DeWine had something to do with this. Well, as it turns out, as the story goes, they would lead you to believe that this was about cockfighting and marijuana distribution. I tend to believe this had to do with far more than just that. This probably had something to do with child trafficking. It had something to do with Ukraine and Ukrainian involvement, among, I'm sure, other things. But if I had to take a guess, I'd say child trafficking. That's why the drug aspect of some of these stories is what sort of comes to the forefront first, because if government is actually involved in the crime itself, they're not going to tell you it was about child trafficking. They would essentially just gloss the story over with it being about drugs and something related to drugs. And minors are involved and drugs are involved and giving drugs to minors, and that's what that's all about. Now, again, I could be looking into it a little bit differently, but I do know that there were, I believe, at least one, if not more, podcasts associated with what actually went on there. Probably a bunch of 4chan, 8chan posts regarding what really went on there. But, and again, who's to know which answer to believe? But the one answer that you can most assuredly believe is whichever one the government is not saying. And that if government is saying it, chances are it's not the truth, in particular if it's coming out of the mouth of the DeWines. So Mike DeWine himself and his wife also have numerous connections to Haiti. Lots of them, as a matter of fact. And they've been interested in bringing Haitian children to Ohio for a very long time. This is not a new thing. And this is not new just relating to Springfield, Ohio. And of course, in the last episode, you heard me read off the list of all the things that Mike DeWine wants to do for the Haitians in Springfield, and it has nothing to do with actually getting rid of them. It has to do with, again, maintaining their presence there, essentially as a secret police force. And that towns and cities using illegals to destroy the area around them and then break the law and then not be held accountable, this accomplishes the same motive as a secret police force when it comes to the local citizens of a particular area. Again, this is a depth of evil that is very hard for people to comprehend. But once you understand that evil exists, then you should basically lift the veil on evil and understand that there are no boundaries on it. That endless individuals engage in this on multiple levels, and it's right down to the most horrific things that the human mind can possibly imagine, and then worse than that. Now, this again is where it ties into Springfield, and it also ties into nationwide events here that that are not new, and this is a very predictable move, in particular during an election year. You have sheriffs all over the place talking about crimes that are taking place and illegal aliens and gun violence, quote unquote, even though there's no such thing. There's just human violence and then the thing that they use. And then, of course, alleged school shootings and school-related violence and threats of weapons and whatever. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because you already know this and I've already been over this on the show numerous times, but as I said earlier, 3-letter agencies are involved in a lot of these threats. And this was one of the headlines just the other day from CNBC. It was titled, Ohio GOP Governor DeWine says at least 33 bomb threats prompt Springfield to begin daily school sweeps. 33. Again, interesting number to say the least. If DeWine's not a Mason, he's certainly owned by them and manipulated by them. And of course, it's scripted because they're sending messages to one another as if to say thank you for the bomb threats because, you know, it wasn't Billy who got a bad score on his math test. He's not the one calling in the bomb threat. These are 3-letter agencies, Masons, cops, you name it. And they're doing this to manipulate the public. And they're doing this to manipulate the people in these environments, and this is purposeful. This is not an accident. But of course, if the individuals are gullible to these levels of evil, then they're never going to understand it. They'll just consistently believe it and buy into it. This is why, of course, they never catch them. Well, you know, we're not going to be able to catch them because the phone number was from overseas. Well, yeah. Again, anybody can use a virtual protection network and call one of these things in. It's not difficult to do. Which again should lift the veil on the fact of how easy this can be accomplished. But even so, the other day you have, again, numerous citizen journalists in Springfield, and they're coming up to this elementary school, which was evacuated for the rest of the day because of so-called threats. I'm going to play some of this audio here from this X thread because you're going to listen to these individuals and you're going to hear again how a lot of them are believing it. And they're buying into it. But this is all manufactured. And that's what some of them don't even understand and can't comprehend, is that all of this is designed to socially engineer these people and engage in ritualistic trauma with them and their children and the school staff members and the entire area with regularity in order to, again, bend the messaging into saying, please stop talking about our town and our school districts because all of this attention is causing people to call in threats, whether they be real, fake, or otherwise. And you can hear the social engineering, certainly in the second individual's voice, where he's talking about, you know, Trump's rhetoric, quote unquote, and how the media, of course, always uses that. And every single time that Trump mentions a particular location and emphasizes a particular location, that all of a sudden it creates all of this chaos. Well, who's creating the chaos? It's the people lying about what's going on in the area that are creating the chaos. It's the local, state, and federal politicians, and then, of course, it's the media. They're the ones creating the chaos, with all the law breaking and, of course, illegal aliens, etc., etc. The list is endless. But let me play 2 pieces of audio here from right outside of the school. This first is, again, allegedly a mother, a parent. She's wearing a Nirvana shirt, and she's got 3 kids around her, what appear to be elementary school age, and you'll hear her describe what's going on. And then the second person is a black guy who's again in the exact same parking lot, and he's describing it too, and I assume he's there to pick up a child. But either way, you'll hear sort of their separate takes and their different degrees on what's actually happening there. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
I wasn't going to send them today, but it was picture day, so I sent them. So I'd already told my boss, you know, I need to stay close by. So I kind of seen it coming. It just seems to be each day a new school. I think they're just people are trying to invoke fear at this point, again, to get their voices heard. hopefully it works because I'm tired of this. I know that. So I don't know what anyone's end goal is here. I mean, the people aren't going anywhere, so we just need to find a way to make it work instead of invoking fear and separation. So I hope we can all come together and figure something out.
Again, I hope we can all come together and figure something out. I wasn't going to send my kids because it was, but I did because it was picture day, because that matters. Again, these are not awake citizens. They don't understand what's going on. They can't grasp the depth of the evil in their own local government, let alone anything outside of that. The enemy is in their shorts, for God's sakes. I mean, it's right on their lap. It's in their backyard. It's right there, and they still can't recognize it. Because you wouldn't be sending your children to these schools, certainly in Springfield, let alone anywhere else, that have illegal aliens in them. And that again, if these illegal aliens are below the age of 18 or can be identified as being below the age of 18, then unfortunately, by Supreme Court precedent and Supreme Court law, they are entitled to a public education. Again, you have 16-year-old Haitians in middle school in Springfield, Ohio. This is a thing. There are local residents that have openly stated this. This is not okay by any stretch of the imagination. But again, is that a new thing? The answer is no. Illegal aliens being in American schools is Supreme Court precedent. It is unfortunately the law of the land. And again, it happens in every state and it happens in every school district. You have registered sex offenders as students who are still attending American K-12 schools and allowed to do so because, well, they're still entitled, because they're a minor, to a public education. This is a huge problem. This is not a society or a staple of society that needs to exist or can even be sustained to any extent to keep society afloat. Here's a couple more comments. This is a guy apparently walking his grandkid home or his son home through the parking lot, and you'll get his 2 cents on what's going on there as well. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1. Again, I think this is the exact same school.
Bunch of baloney. I don't know who's doing it, but I hope they catch them and lock them up forever or deport them or whatever they got to do.
How has it disrupted your life?
Well, I'm retired, but it's disrupted his life. The children, that's for sure.
Do they feel scared?
Pardon me?
Do they feel scared?
He's not, but he likes the bus ride, so he'd be all right anywhere he went.
Again, just briefly, he doesn't know. He's openly said he doesn't know who's responsible for any of this. And if you were to tell him, it's the government. It's even local government. And if you were to even sit him down and say it's probably even local law enforcement, because it gives them something to do. And then, of course, it makes the law enforcement, local government, and the school system look like the safety and security of American kids is their number one concern. That they're all here for you. It's the social engineering aspect of getting government to be back in the good graces of the public, and that you can trust us and that we are here for you. It's gaslighting to the nth degree. Here's the last individual. This is the black guy who, again, was in the same parking lot. And again, you'll hear his take on it. He's kind of middle of the road. But either way, give his comments a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
As far as the debate, he didn't have information on Springfield, and he can't speak like that because he's a very powerful person. You know what I mean? People will react. We've seen it in the past many a times. People will react off what he says. You know what I'm saying? So this is all off him. You know what I mean? So I don't think he was. I don't think he was right for saying what he said, but also, he was just trying to bring awareness. I do believe that. I just think he said it the wrong way. Everybody knows that's how Trump is. He'll speak what's on his mind. I respect him for that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, he has to understand the power that he has. Now he's got all this stuff happening. This has been happening for the last week. You know what I mean? And it's all off the debate. Y'all are down here because of the debate. all these threats are going on because of the debate. So it's just, I think that he just needs to word stuff differently, get information before he just speaks on stuff, because they're not down here eating cats and dogs. You know what I mean? So he just needs to get the right information. I don't think I wouldn't necessarily say he's wrong, because, at the end of the day, he's just trying to bring awareness, like I said. You know what I mean? I personally believe that as Americans, we should be worried about America. You know what I mean? That's my personal opinion. But as Americans, we help other countries, and I understand that. You know what I mean? But I just feel like right now we're in a space where we can't really provide too much help. You know what I mean? Especially in this city. You know what I mean? Because, like they said, we was already low on resources before the Haitians got here. You know what I mean? And then they sent 20,000 of them here when we already had a total of 60,000 people here. That crushed our resources as far as Americans. We almost can't get nothing now. You know what I mean? It's hard to buy houses, buying houses at decent prices, and everything done rose, and so it's affected everybody. So I just it's just a big whirlpool for real.
Again, he's confused. He's leaning one direction, and then he contradicts himself in the exact other. So he doesn't know where to stand on anything because he doesn't have the facts at hand here. He knows the problems. He's a resident there. So, again, he openly admits it, but he's all over the place. This is the confusion that, again, the media purposely wants. And this is the confusion that the school systems allow themselves to be set up for. Same thing again with local politicians and law enforcement. They cannot grasp the depth of what is going on here. They just can't. And if you can't grasp the understanding of what's going on, then you can't actually react to it properly, let alone prevent anything from actually taking place. It's far too complex for them to even understand. Again, bless their hearts, they can see what's happening at face value. They can fully understand that things are happening at a pace and certainly at a rate that they've never seen before, and they don't agree with it. And they're openly saying that. But they don't understand the larger scheme here, which of course is to replace them. And that is the scheme, even regardless of race. Yes, it's about getting rid of white people, but it's also about getting rid of anybody. And unfortunately, these towns and cities are using these illegal aliens as, again, a hidden police force in order to create chaos and financially destroy the lawful citizens who live there. And it's beyond disgusting. I would recommend, too, that people bounce over to Taylor Hanson's X account, TaylerHansen. He was on the ground there and has been, I think, for a little while, and he was interviewing a number of different people, interviewing some elderly individuals who have lived in Springfield, Ohio for quite some time, and they've been talking about, of course, the decline of the city over the course of recent years. Same thing with the homeless population and how the Haitians are being given food and shelter first over the actual legal citizens in Springfield who happen to be homeless. And, it's a terrible situation. There's no doubt about it. But this right here is where it cuts into, again, a little bit more of the political bullshit, is that here in Butler County, our infinite wisdom sheriff is Richard Jones. And this guy is a Fox News watching, 9/11 believing weirdo. He is the epitome, in my opinion, of all hat, no cattle. If you sat this guy down and explained to him how the real world operates, he'd have no flippin' clue. This guy goes to Washington, D.C., as you've heard me say before. He rubs elbows with the feds. He believes everything the feds tell him. And that's about it. But if you were to sit him down and say, hey, Rich, there were no planes on 9/11. He would kick you out of his office. That's how nuts this guy is. But it's an election year. And per an election year, it certainly has worked this way with his election in recent years, is that he always seems to run unopposed. Again, he has a biological weapon running around this county, masquerading rather as a preventative medicine in the COVID shots, which of course we know it is not. You've heard me say that I've sent him all the documentation I possibly can to prove as such, and that he has a legal responsibility to get rid of it. But he's not doing that because he's afraid he's, maybe going to lose a vote or two. Well, the fact is he's running unopposed. 5 people could vote for him and he'll still win. But this is an issue. That when the enemy, like I said, is in your pants, on your lap, or in your back door, and you don't know it, you have a serious problem. In particular, when you don't know it and you're not doing anything about it. And when citizens tell you what the actual problem is, and you deny it or don't communicate with them when they openly give you their phone number, address, and email, like I have, and willing to sit down and discuss this with him, you would think that as a voter and a constituent, certainly, and a citizen in this same county, that he would want to reach out and have such a discussion. But not when it comes to political expediency and maintaining the position and influence that he has. Again, is he a Freemason? Did he take multiple oaths? Because he can't serve 2 separate gods. You can't do it. So last week, he actually got again on social media and put out about a 4-minute video talking about illegal immigration and Haitians and illegal aliens in Springfield and how we all need to do something about this. And we all need to vote for Trump and we all need to do this and we all need to do that and vote for him and blah, blah, blah. He hasn't done jack shit about any of it since he's been sheriff. He'll lock him up and then they get rid of him because they don't have the quote-unquote space. And then he says, well, we can't get rid of them. Well, why not? Why can't you get rid of them? Again, I don't agree with putting them on a Greyhound bus and sending them to another state where they're just going to rape, steal, and murder somebody else. That's human trafficking and that's a problem. But again, if this means that you bring in FEMA trailers and you have a temporary detention center for these illegals, well then damn it, that's exactly what you do. But you have to find other solutions. You have to find other ways to keep these people off of the streets. So let me play his little video here. Again, it's 4 minutes and 20 seconds long. You'll hear it straight from his mouth. And again, you'll hear how ignorant he is on this subject and how, frankly, he hasn't done anything about it. And again, without Donald Trump being in office, I don't think he has a solution. Because this is going to involve arresting Mike DeWine. That's really the solution here. It's going to involve arresting state, local politicians, countywide politicians, and anybody who just didn't do what they were supposed to do and uphold the Constitution of the United States. Richard Jones isn't doing that. You got to keep in mind, too, this was the same sheriff who says that your sheriff at the county level, ladies and gentlemen, is your last line of defense. You can trust us. Nope. Sheriffs are not the last line of defense. We are. Our trigger fingers are. We are in charge as citizens. That's why it says we the people. Us. Not you, not government, and certainly not sheriffs who are rubbing elbows with feds in Washington, D.C. So, with that said, here's Richard Jones in 3, 2, 1.
How's everybody doing today? I'm Sheriff Rick Jones from Butler County, Ohio. I'm here today to talk to you about the invasion of our country. And mostly what we've had, I want to talk about Springfield, Ohio, which is less than an hour drive from here in Butler County, Ohio. So if you look at it, Springfield has been in the news in the past few days. It's a 1-hour drive from here. And their residents, about 50,000 residents. In 4 years, I want to repeat that, in 4 years, they can't tell exactly, it's between 15 and 20,000 illegals have came into their community, have been brought to that community. Listen, 50,000 residents. And you've seen it on the news, what you've got, the residents are angry as hell. It affects their school system. It affects the hospitals, the social services agencies. Where are they going to live? The police, the life squad. You don't know who these people over, who they are. They're coming in. Now, you've seen on the news mostly Aurora, Colorado. Illegals took over an apartment complex, all from one country. Listen, it comes a time to when we have to say, look, you can't just come here. They come from 160 different countries. They come through Mexico into the United States. I have people ask me, we're the 7th largest county in Ohio. all the way in Ohio, the seventh largest of 88 counties. Why do you care? It's pretty simple. It affects everybody. Here in Butler County, we have 400,000 roughly population. In my jail, any given day, I have close to 1,000 prisoners. In the last 3 years, I want to repeat that. In the last 3 years in my Butler County jail, I've had close to 1,000 illegals in my jail from all over the world. Of that 1,000, they've had 2,000 criminal charges placed on them. I just had a guy in my jail that been deported 8 times. And they found out that he killed someone. And it's not the end of that. We just went back and got another one from Mexico that killed somebody 10 years ago. They get there, they think they got it made. I've been saying this all along. It affects, I go to small counties. I talk to smaller sheriff's offices. I go to sheriffs and I talk to them from all over the country. It don't matter how small your city is. If you're on the interstate, you got people coming through, they arrest them. What language are they speaking? They come through your jail. They're in your area. If you get out on the roads and you travel, they're in your area. If you go to the people that have died, here in Ohio, we've had 5,000 people die of drug overdoses where the fentanyl is coming through the Mexican border, coming from China. China's doing this on purpose and trying to addict and kill people and cause disruptions within our country. It's not on the border. I've been to the border 3 times. And I'm telling you, every state is a border state right now. You get out on the highway, you travel, you get out on you go shopping, people are on drugs, they're driving cars. This is because it's coming through Mexico from China. We're in a major issue of our country. 78% of Americans think that we've let the borders go and we're being overrun. We have people coming from China that are of military age. That's not make-believe. We have people that are here. We're getting ready to come up on 9/11. Don't forget what terrorists can do, a small group. Pay attention. These complexes and these people that are coming into our country illegally, they're not supposed to be here. We don't know who they are. We allow close to 1.5 to 2 million people to come in illegal every year. I believe they've got close to 16 million people or more that have came into this country. We have no idea who they are. Pay attention. God bless you and stay safe, my friends.
I didn't hear a single solution. I didn't hear one. Just pay attention. That's his only solution. Just pay attention, stay safe, pay attention, and God bless everybody. Give me a flippin' break. In Oxford, Ohio, where Miami University is located, they have an illegal intake center being erected right now called a transportation hub. That's code language for we want to be a sanctuary city. They're already bringing in the town where I live, they're bringing in homeless and illegals from other towns and cities in Butler County to Oxford, Ohio. This is happening. And they're giving them, quote unquote, affordable housing. They're working harder for illegal aliens than they are citizens of this area who would actually like to work, who are legal citizens, hence the word citizens, and would like a roof over their head. This is astounding to me. Richard Jones has never spoken at a city council meeting, not once. He's never shown up and looked at the city council members in Oxford, Ohio, and their dumbass mayor, and he's never said, hey, stop bringing homeless and illegals into your city and into this town. Stop. Stop putting them up places. Stop giving them places to live. You need to shut down all of your operations regarding this, and if you don't, we're going to prosecute you for human trafficking. This is all he has to fucking say. But he isn't bringing it up. He's not saying a word. Well, I've been to other sheriff's departments, and I've talked to other sheriffs, and we're just talking and talking and talking. Well, that's great. Good for you. All hat, no cattle. I'm not voting for him. I'm just not. Lots of citizens in Butler County, he's not getting my vote. I'd rather vote for no one than vote for him. Hell, I'm more qualified to be the sheriff of Butler County than he is because I don't have my head in my ass. I'm not walking around thinking that Arabs with box cutters took over airplanes and ran them into buildings. He believes this. This is mind-numbing. It's mind-numbing. He's illiterate. In the definition of the word literate, by today's definition, he is illiterate. All he is an enforcer of whatever politician is in charge. That's it. That's all he is. He's a tool. He's not looking for other means to control these individuals and make sure that they never leave custody. He's not doing it. Just be aware and be safe. Pay attention and just pay attention, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll be just fine, according to Richard Jones. Okay. Last line of defense, my ass. Anyway, that's what's happening. That's the frame of mind among these individuals. If your sheriff doesn't know what's happening, if local citizens really don't know what's going on, if school systems don't have a clue and can't manage what's actually happening, let alone who's controlling and operating all of this, it's over then. I mean, it's just over. You can't keep having this level of illiteracy on a fundamental basis as to who's really creating all of this chaos and expect to make it and expect for anything to improve. It's a sad state of affairs, and that goes without saying, but this is a very real thing. So there's that. Okay. 2 quick jab-related things. Came across this old study about ivermectin dating back to October 1st of 2018. It was titled, in the ACS publications, Ivermectin promotes peripheral nerve regeneration during wound healing. So there you have it. Again, thorough study, plenty of pictures, plenty of proof. The fear-mongering about ivermectin, again, you don't take drugs if you don't have to. That's the only lesson I think that is worth mentioning. But does it promote wound healing? I can tell you from personal experience it most certainly does. Having used both the paste and the pills separately and collectively when it comes to just poison ivy and skin wounds, I'm telling you, it dries up the wound and heals the wound in just a matter of a couple of days. Not kidding. It really is a rather incredible drug when it comes to things like that. So, again, I've used it for diverticulitis, an inflammation of the large intestine. It, too, works miracles. So, yeah, don't take it if you're not sick. But again, if an ailment comes around, again, something like a skin wound or poison ivy or what have you, and you want to give it a go, hey, give it a try. Might work out. In conclusion, and sort of in predictable fashion, I went back and I looked at Trevor Bauer's YouTube channel regarding the episode of him breaking down again some baseball playoff stuff regarding the Mexico team he's on and him discussing his diagnosis of Guillain-Barré syndrome. And wouldn't you know it, my YouTube comment has been deleted, along with the PDF link that I linked in the description in my comment that led him to all of the intentional effects of the COVID shots themselves. But I went back and I couldn't find the comment, and there you go. So either he, his moderator, the person who again is putting together his channel, or YouTube themselves deleted the link, and there you have it. Denial, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a survivable characteristic. Okay. With that said, thank you for listening as always, and I will catch you on Friday, where I believe Dr. Robin McCutcheon is going to be back on from Marshall University. So make sure and tune into that. We're going to talk all things Marshall, all things jab, all things the economy, business, you name it. So I will catch you then. In the meantime, peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.